Tuberville gives up the Senate, who runs for that Senate seat?
I mean, to me, a Senate seat, man, open. I mean, one of these guys. Why are people not licking their chops on that? I mean, uh, I mean, if Tuberville don't, I mean, if Ainsworth don't get in it and Marshall don't get in it, I mean, God, that's just like a
Yeah,
sitting out
I'm
there.
kind of thinking that if Ainsworth and Tuberville are facing each other off in the governor's race and the Senate race is open, I'm thinking, some very influential people will go to Steve Marshall and say, Steve, we need you in the Senate. Now, obviously, they don't want him to challenge Tuberville, but yeah, I don't think they're going to open that up to like a battle royal where there's 15 candidates you've never heard of running for U.S. Senate in Alabama.
Okay, so you
But I
think
mean,
they'd go to
I've
Marshall?
heard that Marshall might be a candidate.
What about Twivkle
Some
Cavanaugh?
people have told me that Nathaniel Ledbetter, the Speaker of the House, might be a candidate.
Ooh, that's an interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that Greg Reed or Garland Gudger might be open
Ooh.
to a Senate run if it became available. Both of them would have been pro tem of the Senate here in Alabama. Another name that's put out there is Congressman Barry Moore. I mean,
That would be a
he
strong
took a
candidate.
big gamble this past time because that he was to no fault of his own was his second his whole county was moved over from the second congressional district to the first congressional district by a federal court. And a lot of the establishment people were telling me that Barry Moore can't beat Jerry Carl down there in the first congressional district. That Jerry Carl's too beloved, that he's too good a guy, and all this. And Barry gambled on himself and just ran the hardest campaign, imaginable down there in South Alabama and beat out Jerry Carl in that Republican primary. Uh, and that hard race bought Barry Moore a lot of name ID and name recognition because if you add what used to be in the second congressional district to what is now in the first congressional district, uh, Barry Moore has represented a big chunk of Alabama. I mean, everything from, um,
Mm.
Autauga County south to Mobile County, from Mississippi to the Georgia line, if it's the southern third of Alabama, yeah, at one point, either now or, last year, you were in Barry Moore's district. Uh, so he would be a potent candidate if he got into an open U.S. Senate contest.
I've met Barry. I know you probably know him a lot more than I do. I was very impressed with him when he was running in 2020 when I met him in Elmore County. Um,
Oh, Barry Moore is one of the most likable people in our congressional delegation, and you can't run to the right of Barry Moore. Poor Jerry Carl tried, and it just fell flat. I mean, you know, Barry Moore is a pro-Trump, MAGA Republican, Freedom Caucus guy. Uh, with the possible exception of Tuberville, I would argue Barry Moore is the most conservative person to represent Alabama in the Congress, since, the 1970s anyway.
um, so if that lieutenant governor's race, man, if you put that Rick Pate's name in there, and we're assuming that Tuberville's
Yeah, and we
running.
we we know that Wes Allen is in because he's already announced. We know that Dean Odle, the pastor out of Lee County, with the conspiracy theories is in. Um, all indications are that John Merrill is going to be in, the former Secretary of State. Commissioner of Agriculture and Industries Rick Pate told us he is considering getting in. Um,
Twivkle Cavanaugh.
yeah, I mean, I've been told that Twivkle is looking at getting in that race, for the PSC presidency. Of course, she doesn't have to give up her PSC presidency to run for that. Um, there's some other people. I think Nicole Jones Wadsworth is looking for some people are trying to talk Nicole Jones Wadsworth into running for that. Um, I, you know, that's I mean, if nobody else gets in that, they're shaping up to be a battle royal of all deal. Because I mean, in 8 years, that person's probably the front runner for governor.
I mean, have we ever seen a race like that for lieutenant governor that packed before? I mean, I know Moe and Strange and Wallace ran one time, but I mean, we're talking about 5, 6 candidates being that thing.
Yeah, I mean, I kind
I
of
mean,
think
big
some
name
of these
candidates
people
too.
will ultimately back down. I mean, Allen and Odell are in. Of course, qualifying doesn't even open till like December. So, I mean, a lot of people have a lot of time to talk themselves out of it, and there could be new names getting in it.
Do you
I
think if
mean,
that
I was
Senate seat
told a
comes
new
open?
name for governor that has no chance whatsoever. But, last night, and I'm like, okay, good
Do you
guy. I
think
don't think he can beat Tuberville, but, or Ainsworth. But
um do you think if that Senate seat comes open, John Merrill might run for that? I mean, he's what, toyed with it 3 times.
I kind of think that, Merrill's focus has been on lieutenant governor from the beginning. Because like I say, if you make lieutenant governor, it's a step to governor. Uh, the current governor's, you know, once the governor you run with has done their 2 terms. Yeah, I guess Merrill might switch races to Senate because he hasn't declared. I mean, Wes Allen might ultimately, just because you declare doesn't mean you can't switch and then, undeclare and declare for Senate. Lindy Blanchard did that last time.
I mean, so I mean, this is a lot of I guess crossroads for some politicians, because if Merrill or Twinkle, if they lose another race, if they lose a race, they're never going to be taking. They can't run again nationally. I mean,
Well, no, I
statewide.
mean, Twinkle is not term limited as PSC president.
Yeah, but I mean, if she's lost, people probably not. If she lost 2 races for lieutenant governor, could people take her serious again?
I think that may be one of the concern they have. I'm not ruling Twinkle out as running for Secretary of State. Uh,
Ah, okay, okay.
I mean, I think Twinkle is thinking about lieutenant governor. And Twinkle might ultimately decide to run for that U.S. Senate seat if Tuberville gives it up.
Well, I was thinking about that too. I mean, Twinkle Cavanaugh in a
Because,
Republican
I mean,
primary for the Senate
I don't
seat.
know
I
if Steve
mean,
Marshall is going to get in that or not, but I mean, if you had Steve Marshall and Twinkle, Andrews Kavanaugh, those would be two pretty heavy hitters in that race. Right now, I would give the edge to Marshall, but it's a
that would
long
be.
time between now and May of 2026.
I mean, if she had the power companies bankrolling her, she would be. I think she'd be tough to beat.
Well, I don't know if the power company, is bankrolling her, but she has committed donors who, do support Twinkle and her ambitions. Um, I mean, she gets criticized a lot for the power rates, but when you've got Joe Biden and Barack Obama closing down your power generating plants, power bills are going to go up.
Well, she also, and I've been one of Twinkle's biggest critics. I know that, but over the last I think year or so, they've dropped the rates now 3 times. So I mean that that if we're gonna criticize them when they raise them, you have to give them acknowledged too when they've
Yeah.
dropped them. Fuel prices go down. So I mean, they have done that.
And Alabama Power's employees and their leases on their buildings and servicing their fleet of trucks and their lines, that's a pretty much fixed cost. That doesn't vary a lot. The big variable with power rates is what does natural gas cost? Because they really won't, I mean, the libs up in DC really won't let us burn coal like we used to. And, new oil burning plants are looked down on. And building another nuclear plant would take 20 years. It doesn't do any good in the near term and cost, $1 billion.
Oh God, yeah, it would cost a. Um. Okay. So we've touched on Secretary of State's race. Andew Sorrell is going to run. I think we touched Twinkle. Is there anybody other
Andew
names?
Sorrell's the only announced candidate for that I'm aware of. Now we do have some congressional challengers. Robin Litaker has declared in Congressional District 7 she's going to run against Terry Sewell again. And
How many times does she have to lose? I mean, think about this. Right? Robin Litaker has the distinction of being a candidate who lost the same race twice in 6 months. Do you realize that? She lost the Republican primary in a general election in 5 months from each other.
well, I mean, she increased her name recognition by running this last time. And, you know, part of her problem last time was that the Republicans had deluded themselves into thinking they could win CD2. So, a large amount of money was poured into that second congressional district behind Caroline Dobson. And, I mean, it didn't really move the needle. I mean, Shamari Figures beat her pretty decisively. So,
About 10 points.
yeah, I mean, uh, Sewell raised $3 million, spent over $2 million, and poor Robin Litaker could only raise like, 22,000, and, she borrowed another 17. So she ended up spending like 40,000. I mean, she
I
was
mean, you're spending.
outspent 50 to 1.
I mean, how do you think somebody think they're going to win that seat? I mean,
And Sewell had $1 million in the bank that she didn't even need to tap.
Sewell probably didn't even need to spend. I mean, does that not how
Sewell
much does this
probably could have
affect?
won that without spending anything, but
Well, probably by the same number that she won it by, about by 30 points. I mean, does this not affect all these other races in that district? Like the Jefferson County area, I mean, where there were some Republican areas with
Jefferson
her.
County is one of the most Democratic areas.
But I mean, ain't there some Republican areas in
There are
that
Republicans pockets in Jefferson County, Gardendale, Trussville,
yeah, wasn't
to
there
a
like some
point,
races like probate
Vestavia,
judge?
the Jefferson County
No,
part
no,
of
no, I'm talking about
Hoover.
wasn't there some probate judge races that was part of like Sewell's district that
Yeah,
was it?
the
I mean, could that have affected
Alabama
those races?
GOP for some reason bankrolled two candidates for probate judge in Jefferson County, even though no Republicans have won a countywide race in Jefferson County in over a decade. Well, I don't know if it's been over a decade, but it's been close to a decade. And they lost. It really wasn't that close. In fact, Donald Trump did worse in Jefferson County in 2024 than he did in 2020. I mean, the trend line has been pro-Democrat in Jefferson County.
Oh yeah,
Um,
for a long for quite a while now. Um,
yeah. But
but I
again, if
guess
you spent some of the money you spent on Blankenship and Amari and those probate raises on Robert Litaker, does that move the needle at all?
no, not any. I
Well,
mean,
that's something the Republican Party has to figure out. It's like, okay, we're raising money. Where do we spend our money?
I wouldn't be throwing it in to that race against Terry Sewell, and I don't care if I had Donald Trump himself down there, um, or any. I don't know how anybody's going to flip that district.
Yeah, I mean, I think the party only contributed like $5,000 to Litaker this last time. That's not enough to even begin to be competitive. The problem with that district is you can spend $1 million and still get outspent because
Well,
Sewell never really ramped her campaign up into overdrive like she's capable of if she was really afraid. Uh, Now, Lidecker might luck out and Terry Sewell not run for reelection. This could be Sewell's last term.
well, then you just have probably somebody like Randall Woodfin run for it and take it.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, there a new congressperson, you know, creates a bit of a realignment. I mean, obviously, most Democrats are still going to vote for the Democrat, but there may be some swing voters that are reachable. But now, the first thing Lineker has to do is win the Republican primary because she had
Well,
trouble
that's
with
what I was
that
going to.
last year.
Would you be if you was a Republican Party? Would you be motivated to donate to a candidate who lost the Republican primary by 12 points to a guy who had dropped out?
But she wasn't campaigning because he had dropped out. I mean, Chris Horn's a good dude and he's well known around the state, so a lot of people just, picked Horn over Lineker, even though Horn had already sent a letter withdrawing.
Mm. Um.
I think that should
What?
be about it, Christopher, unless there's some other
Yep.
topic we've overlooked.
No. But let me tell you something. Let me stop recording. I'm gonna tell you something. Ask you about something that's not on
Okay.
that.